Hello, everyone. My name is Tiffany. I'm a Tipsy Artist. Today we are painting this beautiful mother and child cow. They're very bright and beautiful. And if you haven't noticed yet, I love painting cows. So I paint a lot of cows. So this is going to be our fun project for today. So this will be with us the entire time during the process. You'll be able to see this. And let's go ahead and talk about the traceable, because I love to cater to beginners and make the process very fun and easy for them to give them a sense of accomplishment. So this is our line art that I created for y'all. This is the sketch of this, how we started. So let's talk about how to first apply this to the canvas. So we've got and by the way, this all comes with a painting kit. You have all the supplies that you need, tipsyartist.com, check it out. So we've got your canvas here. Your transfer paper, I only tape up at the top. That way, as you're doing the trace work, you can lift up and check your work as you go. That's very important because you want to make sure that you get all of the details in place first. And I have worked ahead, as you can see, so that's what it looks like once you start to do your transfer work. And I just place it in the center. With this one, the design runs out here at the base, so I do kind of place it a little bit lower to line up with the bottom edge of the canvas there. And then your kit comes with a pencil. So basically what you'll do is you'll just do a line, you'll just draw right over the top everywhere that I did a line. And then when it becomes a little bit more of like solid and shading, then what I do is I take my pencil and I turn it on the side and I just real lightly kind of graze over the top here of the canvas, like a little bit of light pressure, and then just go over that. And so I'll do my shading that way, but I'll turn, when I do the line edge, then I turn it just that standard pencil hold and then just draw right over the top. So that gives you a really great idea of how we start. And I'm going to go ahead and switch our camera views here. So you can have a lovely aerial view and a nice up close view as I paint. So I always like to start my studio so you see where I work. So this is where all the fun and magic happens. And without further ado, let's go ahead and start to paint here. So I'm going to switch cameras. All right. All right, so we have lots of fun supplies nearby. Again, your painting kit comes with everything that you need, with the exception of the water, and I have that here nearby. We've got our napkins, our family of brushes. Let's introduce them to you now. We have Mama, and then we have Little Buddy, and then we have Little Bit, little palette knife here. Also, as I mentioned, it comes with your pencil, and there is also a permanent marker in there. This gives you an idea of how it looks when it comes to you. So we have a little bit of washi tape to help you secure here and here. There's a fun little party blower, help you feel festive. So all that good stuff. All right. So let's go ahead and do another up close view of the trace. So as I mentioned, you hold your pencil, you just start to draw right over the top. When you do your shading, you turn it over to the side like this. And then we always want to lift, before we take this off of our canvas, we really want to make sure that we have all those details in place. So I'm going to look at this again here really quick. And I feel like I am good. Let's come back down. I may want to come in over the top of this one more time. Yeah, I think we're in good shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and lift off. And when you're done with this part, this actually can just go in the trash. Okay, so sometimes, oops, I hit this with my feral hat here. Let's go ahead and. Boy, I really knocked it good. Okay, that's better. Okay. Putting my little cowboy hat off to the side there so that I don't keep bumping my camera. All right, so I've got my permanent marker. Sometimes when I do these, I like to do a hard line over everything. This is a very light, bright painting, so I'm not gonna do that on this one, but whatever is really dark, I do wanna go ahead and get that in so I don't lose that. So very delicately, I'm gonna come around this little eye shape here. I'm gonna leave that little flash point of light. Same thing here, do a little touch of this. Light little touches on that. Right, and then same thing here on this little guy. Do light little, be real patient with it. And if you do happen to cover up over the entire flash point of light in the middle of the eye, I'm going to be teaching you how to reapply that with paint anyway, so don't be too concerned about that. Little touches, there we go, those look great. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the nostrils here too. It's going to be black to begin with. And then here. So little bits of this, I do want to come in with some darkness. Get that contrast. Just light. All right. And that's about it on this one. I want to keep the rest of it really light. All right, so we're going to place that off to the side. We're going to place our pencil off to the side. And we've got our mixing plates nearby, got a little bit of a head start with some titanium white and our lamp black here. And I've got quite a bit because I've been working today, but I would recommend kind of a quarter size dollop of both of those. That'll give you a nice start. And we're going to begin with our background here. So your brushes are brand new, so they're going to be a little bit stiff. So I'd recommend pushing into the water just a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and dry off on our paper towels here. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my cobalt blue to start with. Nice nickel size amount there. And we're going to take a nice big dollop of this white and that little, start with a little touch of the cobalt blue. Work that in. And you can do teeny tiny amount of black in here too, just super tiny. See how tiny that is? Super tiny. Very overpowering, but that brings in a nice little light gray. So that's going to be quite lovely as well. So I'm going to be alternating between the white, this cobalt blue with white, maybe even a little touch of just pure cobalt blue, and also that little touch of black that mixed in there for that really light kind of slate gray that we just created. So this is going to be our background. I'm going to go ahead and start to push this into the background here. Smooth that out a little bit. That was creating a little bit of a shadow. And there. A little bit more over to the top. Okay. Let's pick up some of that pure white. Push that in. Starting to just do little tiny crisscrosses. Also, a little bit of water kind of mixed in. I just basically pushed in a little touch of water, mix that in. That'll help that paint really nicely flow over the canvas. So you don't get that dry brush look. Again, a little bit of white, that cobalt blue, basically all those different color variations we just created. We're going to be alternating between those, working those here and around the shape. I'm going to come back in a little bit more of that pure cobalt blue. Working that in around that little ear. And little crisscross strokes back and forth. Do a little bit of that light gray, and then over the top here. So to get a nice line edge cut in, when I turn the handle, just hold it more like you'd hold a pencil. That's going to give you that thin line edge on the end of the brush. Come around that little horn. Getting around the little hairs there. And then as I feather out, then I'm going to turn my handle more over to the side, parallel to the canvas, kind of lightly crisscross back and forth. Looks like a little bit more gray too, if you want just more pure gray. Just cross that back and forth, I feather that in, a little bit more of that white. Slightly come in and underneath that horn. Now, if you're feeling a little bit, ooh, way too big. Take your little bit brush. We're gonna work that in, a little bit of water. Do a little twirl into that light gray. We're gonna come in just underneath here. So a little bit of white, lighten this up. And come in between the horn and the ear. And then continue to pull this around that ear shape. Light touch and just kind of give a little bit of variety with the texture by just kind of crisscrossing the brush back and forth. Kind of feels like you make like little letter X's over and over and over again. So you can, again, do your cut-in work with this. And then once you're back out into the large areas here, then you can look back in with the mama. And start to crisscross in those colors. And grab a little bit more white here. Just light little touches in and around that ear. That out a little bit. Cross into it. A little bit more of that gray and that white. And just some vertical strokes now, up and down. Let's grab a little bit of that cobalt blue. Grab a little more of that white. Just kind of right up next to that ear. Flat side of the brush with the white and just kind of pull down from there. That flat side of the brush face the canvas. I'll grab a little bit more white now to pull in and around the cow here. Light pools of white up here. And I'm just gonna crisscross those back and forth, add a little bit of different texture. Maybe. Oops, I just painted my mic. That's all right. Okay. All right, so now we're gonna rinse out here. And then dry off. And push this right off to the side. We're gonna grab some more of those lighter, brighter colors of the cow. So let's go ahead and pull in some lemon yellow. And a pea-sized amount of that. Some yellow ochre here. Some burnt sienna. And perhaps a little touch of some raw umber. This is just a dark brown for those dark areas. And of course, I want to continue to have some of my titanium white nearby, but I still have some more over here, so I'm just going to pull from that. Gotta pick up a nice big dollop on my plate over here, and a little touch of the lamp black. I'm gonna rinse out. Yeah, dry off. All right, so I'm gonna do mainly titanium white here to start with, a little bit of this yellow ochre. We're gonna mix that. We're gonna make a really pretty light cream color. Start to place this into the fur here. Just kind of go up little tiny strokes. I'm using my mama brush. Middle section. All right, so I don't want to lose my trace too as I go. So as we start to get near some of the nice nuances of the face, I'm going to need to mark those in. Because you don't want to just paint over it with the cream and then go, oh no, where was that line? So I'm going to continue working in with a little bit of this cream and the white. Now, real quickly here, I'm going to take my little bit brush and we're going to do a little twirl here to grab some of that raw umber. Black and white. Have a little bit of water. Do a little twirl. Let's go ahead and lightly, and then twirl that. We don't want too much water. I grab a little bit more water, but I don't want too much on the canvas. I'm going to twirl that out a little bit, squeegee out that extra water, and I'm going to go ahead and do that over these little trace lines. I'll keep those firmly in place. Do this little line here. Your line there. And some more of this raw umber, we can make that horn line there. And it's dry brushing on me a little bit, so I'm gonna add a little bit more water to that to make it flow better on the canvas.
here. A little bit of water, raw umber, do a little twirl. Oops, I see those trace lines still there, so I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of do a little bit of that so I don't lose it. And over the top of these trace lines here too. Follow those. Again, this is just those trace lines. We're just following that with that raw umber and a little bit of watery mix in with that. Keep that in place. Use this to go all the way down here. Change the bottom. Turn the brush on the side here. There's a little bit of a dark sketch. Again, a little bit, raw umber, a little bit of water. There's a little bit of white in there too. We're just gonna go over all those trace lines. Put those in place. Baby cow. Just our eyelashes there. Those will actually be, we'll come back in with a little bit more like a lighter white over the top of those. Actually have white eyelashes. But right now we'll come in with a shadow underneath. Line, shadow. Follow the trace. Raw umber, a little bit of water, follow that trace. Pull the brush, run it like that, side to side, with a little bit of shadow underneath. And around that little ear, we're almost done with our reinforcing of the trace here, which is good. Should miss this ear right here. Rub on the side like that. A little bit of water. All right. And dry off. Okay, now we're going to go back to our lemon yellow and a little bit of that white and that yellow ochre and continue pushing that in, crisscrossing that in over the top of the cow here. A little bit of pure white too. It's lovely. And we'll crisscross back and forth. some of that pure white, lay that on over the top. I went into some more of that yellow ochre, again, just like little crisscrosses back and forth. Hold the brush a little bit more out to the side where that flat side of the brush can face the canvas with a gentle hand. And this is a lot of alternating between our lemon yellow, our white, our yellow ochre. We're just going to come in right around this little shape here. There's definitely a lot more color happening, but for right now, we're just going to work on this first foundation of color, which is just going to be very bright and warm. And it darkens up a little bit in here, so I'm going to come in with more of that yellow ochre. I keep the strokes very textural, so a lot of crisscross back and forth. With that darker color in here. Add a little bit of that burnt sienna too. Burnt sienna. And work in near those shadow lines. Now let's grab more white, more lemon yellow, and then work in around that. White. All right, Mama's becoming a little bit big, so we're gonna give her a rest. Rinse off and then dry off here. And let's go and use Little Buddy. And make sure I've got more white over here too. A little bit of that white. Yellow ochre. Lemon yellow. Get little tiny fishes in here. I'm just working on that undercurrent of color. And just tiny little touches of paint. Because our little baby's quite a bit lighter, so I'm going to make sure this is a little bit darker here. Back and forth. A little bit more of that yellow ochre now, and with that burnt sienna. And we're gonna work this in over the top of the ear, little tiny touches of that. And with that burnt sienna underneath the ear, just like little pulls down. More of that shadow, that darker burnt sienna coming in the middle of the ear here. And this is that burnt sienna. We're just getting that first layer of color in here for that shadow. Underneath. Go back into that white and yellow ochre. I'll work that. And mirror that in. Rinse that a little bit, grab a little bit more of my lemon yellow. So make sure I've got plenty of that. I have a little water break here. Little buddy. And then my lemon yellow and my white. And we're gonna work that into the center, little tiny brush strokes. Put that here on the side. Just getting that light wash of color in there. And it's starting to be so delicate that it's not going to be too long. I'm going to have to start to work with my little bit brush, which is our tiniest brush here. With that dry off, let's go ahead and use our little bit brush, and we're going to work in that light white, lemon yellow, mix those two together. And we're going to just cut in and around that little eye. And here, I'm going to place my hand with my little pinky, kind of cut in around there. Get a little bit of that lemon yellow and the white, do a little twirl with my little bit brush into that paint. I'm going to cut in around this little eye here. Oh, white eyelash. I'll just act like I'm lining the eye, and then I'm just going to lightly pull down. Line the eye and then lightly pull down. Come back into that other eye with just a little bit more black up underneath, because it came down a little low with the lash. I'm gonna line the eye again with just a little black. Same thing. Just a little, now a little line of black. So kind of going back into it a little black too. Okay. And a little black, do a little touch here. A little touch. And a little touch here. Those little dark shadows in place. And let's grab a little more of that raw umber. Do little touches in here and kind of pull down for that little tiny strokes of hair in the middle of the ear. So it kind of feels like little parentheses, think of it like that. And then just kind of pull down. A little bit of that raw umber on this other side, again, just like a little parentheses. Come across, kind of pull down in the center here. Okay. Now it's coming over the top with some of that white, little tiny touch of gray, super tiny. So we really want this to be real light and bright. A little white, but very light gray. We're going to come in over the top of this horn. Come out to that point. Back in with that dark gray. That is Hubert. And so, and it's a little bit more of that gray up underneath here. Follow that line up underneath. Grab this one and reinforce that shade too. A little bit of water to help that paint flow in. Rinse out. Now we're going to go in with more of that really light white and that light gray. Let's grab a little bit of water in there too, help loosen that paint up, help it flow. And then let's go ahead and work it back into the tip top here of the horn. Pull that little bit of the light gray. I picked up a little bit of that dark. That's okay. You can add a little bit of white in there, get a soft blend. Get a little bit of that soft light gray, softly blend in here. And we're going to do little soft touches of that gray, a little bit brush, and just kind of softly pull this in. Tiny little choppy brush strokes over the top. Little bits of white. A little bits of that yellow ochre. Chop that in there a little bit, just tiny amounts. Like little tiny dashes over the top. And a little bit of that yellow ochre and just tiny little dashes over the top there to kind of softly blend that in. We're gonna need a little bit of water, a little bit of white, little choppy short dash strokes here, softly kind of blend that in. Those little dash strokes. And then a little bit of white for that highlight over the top. Okay, and then we're going to start to softly work in. We've got this soft light gray here. We're going to continue on with that. More white here. A little bit of that yellow ochre. A little bit of water. So white, yellow ochre, a little bit of that soft gray. And then a lot of white. We're going to really lighten that up. It's almost like a light taupe we're making there. A little bit of water. And we're going to work this in. Just grab some pure white. I really want that to be the color, so just grab a whole bunch of white to start with. All right, we're going to pull in this white right into that little shape, right in through there. Work in little sections of just white hair right over the top of that yellow. So little tiny strokes, hair-like strokes over the top. Again, lots of just pure white. pure white, just touch that in, little tiny hair strokes over the top and pure white. And those little hair strokes, they kind of feel like little tiny dashes. Also kind of feels like little maybe parentheses over the top there. Use that line, so we come back in with more of that raw umber. And then next to that with my yellow. Okay, there, softly blend next to that, and a little bit more of that white, softly blend next to that. Take the water, twirl it out. Now we're going to follow that right next to that with more white to kind of soften that up. So overlay right over the top. Cut in real close to it. And more white just right next to it. And then a little bit, get more white over here when we're going through it. I'm going to work that right in here. And here. And here. And here. All right, now it's time to start picking up some additional colors. So we've got a lot of cobalt blue, pink, coral. So let's have some fun with that. Let's go ahead and grab some more cobalt. Well, actually, I have quite a bit over here. Cobalt blue. And then let's go ahead and start to do some crimson red, because that combined with the white is going to make our nice little light pink. And then we will have our vermilion, which mixed with the white is going to give us a really nice little peachy coral quality. I'm going to do a little bit of white with that crimson. And that's going to give me a really pretty light pink. It's going to touch into a little bit of water. We can start to do like a little touches of that. So I just a little bit of water in with that mix. I kind of press down and then pull and then lift off with a light hand. Get a little bit more of this pink here in the front of the nose. Just kind of come a little outline around the nostril here, and then fill in a light bit of this pink over this little bit of shadow right over the front of the nose in this little area. And then I'm going to come back in with a touch of just pure crimson right over the top. And just kind of softly blend that back in, kind of darken that up. Just kind of working back and forth between that crimson and that pink. And then let's see what else we have, little touches. So I've got little touches of pink in here, so I do little touches of it. Might be kind of drag it out. Little tiny, really light pink here. Just kind of touch, pull. And Grab a little bit of that vermilion with the white, little touch of that there. And just do little tiny strokes of that here. Light touches. It's almost like little tiny little touches and dashes of it. Above a little cow, here's the shading, a dark spot of it. I push back and forth, tiny little dash strokes there. And little dash strokes. This is my vermilion and a little bit of white mixed with that. Pretty dash strokes, starting to really create more of that fun texture in there. Putting in those first layers of color. And you can use your palette knife a little bit here too, if you want, just like do little touches, drags with that to create that texture. And grab a little bit of that yellow ochre. The white. Layer of white over the top here, start to kind of get some more texture in. So get on the bottom section of the palette knife, lightly apply and then kind of slightly drag down. That'll start to build that texture in. And we'll rinse out. We're going to come back in with a lot more of this cobalt blue over the top. I'm going to do napkin here. A little bit, and our white and the cobalt blue. And we've got a little touch of that here. It's like little dashes of paint. Cobalt blue, little bits of white. Make sure it's just that. Like sometimes you can see I dabbed into wet paint and it really obscured my pure cobalt blue and white. So I want to lighten back up. So I did go back and kind of clean up a little bit. And then I'm going to come back in and do a little touch there. More white in with it, lighten up a little bit. Again, little tiny dashes of color. This is my cobalt blue. And over here on this side. A variable between the white and the cobalt blue. And little tiny just dash strokes into that section of the cow. Little bits of white and that cobalt blue. More of that down here over the top. And then in the center, it's just a lot more white. There's like a little hint of cobalt blue too over the top. So one more of that. Just pure white here. Pure white right over the top. And I've got a really light hand with this white. Now I'm trying to hold my brush as carefully as possible more over the top, like to the side, so it gives it a really light, gentle hand. Also allows a lot more of that paint just kind of rest right on the surface area. And you can also try very carefully, just a little bit of that white and to kind of smooth that in over the top. That little bitty area. Oops. And then a little bit of this. Just lay that down. Little tiny bits of hair that come in over the top here. A little more palette work here at the top. You can do a little bit of white with that cobalt blue. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of work in over the top here. Yep. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and kind of work this in. And we're just going to lay that on over the top part here. Create some nice texture. Some vertical strokes and some nice texture over the top. Palette knife is really awesome for that. And continue working this into the background, kind of cut in and around that horn there. White. Drag that across to that horizontal drag. It's really cool texture. It only comes with that beautiful palette knife, so that's really, really nice. Yeah, and that cobalt blue, we're gonna come next to that. And kind of drag it and grab more white, come right next to the edge. Drags across that texture. And once these guys rinsed out, actually, let me new napkin here. And let's reload. Let's get some more colors here. We've got our burnt sienna. Yellow ochre. And I'm gonna play with a little bit of some turquoise look here too. So I'm gonna put this on the other plate. This is my Viridian. A little bit of some white. Take my little bit brush, that Viridian, mix those two together. And just do some brush strokes in there of that. And cobalt blue. near that edge of the face to kind of keep that accentuated. And again, tiny little brush strokes, just adding little accents of color. And also get just a lot of color happening here. And a little bit of some ultramarine blue. Grab a little bit of that. And darken that up a little bit, little tiny little brush strokes up underneath that ear. Pure white, kind of do a little push of that pure white right over the top, where it softly blends. And we have our cobalt blue again and our white. We're going to do a little bit of that in here. There. Taking a little bit, our raw umber, we're going to do a little line right through here. And then just underneath, accentuate that mouth shape. A little bit of water, help that softly flow into the canvas. That little line of that raw umber there. Right, now we're gonna come back into our cow with a lot more texture here in a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and start to work into my baby cow here. So a lot of white paint, a little bit brush. We're gonna go ahead and start to work in these little hairs here. A little tiny strokes upwards. And just kind of crisscross the texture of the white over the top. Little bits of that yellow ochre too, to kind of softly blend a little bit. And then let's go back to that pure white. And crisscross that back and forth. Softly blend in here. And more of that pure white. And we're still just using a little bit brush to work in that shape of the ear here. And a lot of pure white, work into the shape of the ear. A little bit of this crisscross stroke here to go ahead and get coverage into the shape. Pure white. Pure white. Pure white here. Yeah, I'm just going to continue working a lot of this pure white over the top here. That little hint of shadow and a little water. pure white. And just work that in over the top, a little bit of water. And we can start to play with a little bit of color here. So I'm gonna do a little bit of that yellow ochre. Pull that down. And around the ear. Little touch of it in this ear. Little touch of it here. Touch there. I can also start to work into this little section if I missed a little bit in there. White and more over in here. A little bit of white. Checking them out there and there. One side a little bit. Now we're gonna start to go into those pinks and cobalt blue. So I've got my little bit brush again. We're gonna get some water and that cobalt blue and a little bit of white. So right along here, I got a little chunk of that cobalt blue. And then I've got some in here. Just little tiny dashes of it. Also add a little bit of Viridian with your blue to make a nice little turquoise. We're gonna add some white to that. Lighten that up for a little bit more of that seafoam green. So I'm gonna add little touches of that in here. It's like little tiny dashes of it. Touch here. So adding little touches of color, very playful. Touch of that turquoise we just made in there. And again, the turquoise was our Viridian ultramarine blue, a little bit of white. Push of it there and then there. Put there. A little bit brush, get a nice big dollop of it on one flat side and just do, you know, like little tiny pushes and then lift off with a light hand. You know, I may play differently this time, might be a little bit different. Pushes of paint and then just kind of pull. Go into some of this red color. So we've got our white and our crimson, which is going to make some pink. Do a twirl into that. I'm just going to do like little touches of that in here. With that vermilion. Do that on the side. I touch that vermilion and white there on that side, and then here. And then outside of the cow with that vermilion, line that up. And we do have little hints of kind of a sage green, so I'm going to use, this is called hooker's green. What'd you call me? She said, that's what she said. All right, and a little bit of white and that, we're gonna lighten that up. A little white. And a little bit of our ochre. And then just kind of warm that up into that sage. Now we're gonna drag that through and touches. And then, you know, you can use palette knife with that too. So that's a pretty color to do the palette knife with. Just like little tiny touches of that. Then we're gonna do these fun little flowers as well. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this white with that crimson. And you can do like a little push there to each little side. Push and push, making those little petal shapes like that. It's almost like a little parentheses push for that shape. A line of a stem that comes down. And then in the middle, you just do a little pop of color. I'm gonna come back in with pure crimson. A little bit and just push that right into the center there, like that. And it creates that little look of a flower. Now you can do this with the brush too. So if the palette knife's a little bit too eek, like people are panicking. Ah, it's too big. I can't control it. You can do little pushes with your little bit brush too. And this is much easier to control. So you just do like a little push, get a nice little dollop of that pink on the tip of the brush, do a little push, push, push. That makes those little petal shapes, white and crimson. So I'm gonna do a few of those. Little dollop and just kind of push those down. So push, push, little push, push. White and crimson, so there's another little flower there, there. White and crimson and push, 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 push. Okay, and let's rinse out. and grab a little pop of that bright crimson, and we're gonna do a little pop of color right in the center of that little flower. And boom, 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 boom. Okay. Now we're gonna I forgot to do a little pink over the nose here, so let's take a little bit of water over that pink, twist out, and kind of run that over the top of that brown for the top of the nose. A little bit of that underneath, a little bit of white, softly blended in with that. Light pink. White with the soft pink, kind of run that in over the top. Making just a little bit of black for that nostril right there. Pull that down a little bit over the top there. I have to reinforce those little nostrils there. A little bit of white and a softly come over this, soften this top of the nose up a little bit. Take that little tiny white line, just kind of go around that little nostril there. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of this yellow ochre and just do a soft curve over the top of that. Soften that little line up too a little bit with just a little white and that yellow ochre. And then we're gonna do teeny tiny little eyelashes. Now, if these are so tiny that you're a little panicked about the little bit brush, you can always use, but you have to be, has to be completely dry, but you can use your little permanent markers here to do a tiny little eyelash line. But I'm gonna use my little bit brush, gather a little bit of water so it loosens that paint up. It's almost like a watercolor here. Dab out some of that excess water. You don't want to have a water run on your plate. Do a little twirl that'll kind of release that excess water, twirl into a nice fine point. And then we're going to act like we're doing a little bit of liner around the eye and kind of feather down little tiny little eyelashes. Tiny little eyelashes. Let me do that up here too. I'm going to feather out a few more. So it's a little mix of, we have the white and then we come in with the black over the top. So it's a nice look between the two. Kind of looking around. So there's always more play that we can do in terms of layering. With my little bit brush here, and I'm gonna do like a little touch of that yellow ochre and that bright lemon yellow, a little bit of white. Like I can just do like little touches of flowers. And a little bit of that raw umber in the center that makes that little flower, or you can do a bright pop of color in there. Just what you love here. And then I mentioned, I was going to show you, if you did happen to cover up your white flash points in the eyes, a little trick is you can take the end of your brush here, you can dip it into the white paint, so you get that little tiny dot of white. And you can just come right back in over the top. Now I'm gonna have to be careful because now I made him look like he has alien eyes. So I can't get too big, you have to just barely touch down. And back in a little bit more of the black over the top. We're gonna do a little tutorial times two here. So I re-blackened. And you can just leave them completely black too. They're quite lovely that way as well. But again, a little tiny touch of white, barely, and just barely let that little tip of white touch down. And then there we go. That's about the right size. Very tiny amount. All right, and we can just kind of come back in and continue to kind of nuance in little softness of white. Little white highlights here. Light drags with the brush over the top. Little bits of pink in here. Tiny little dashes of that color. And get them softly blended, you can come back in, put a bit of that white over the top, keep it light and bright and softly blended. Little bits of that lemon yellow are also really pretty in here. You can add little touches of that. That lemon yellow and the white. Just little bits of that. There, the light drags of that bright lemon yellow there. See, it's lots of little touches of color that come in over the top. That edge. Bit of accent there, here. And over the top, that hair that comes out over the sky. And a white over the top of his ear.
Now, did you take one of the wood? Yes. No, I'm.
White, I'll push that in. Let's do a little bit more of this cobalt blue through the base here. And then a little bit more of a touch of this cobalt blue. A little touch of that Viridian. Do a little tiny touch in there. All right. Well, we're getting to be about done. We've had a lot of fun playing, lots of really fun color in here. It's kind of hard to know when to quit sometimes. But we have lots of really great color saturation. And then our last step, of course, would be to sign your masterpiece. And what I recommend is letting all this completely set up and dry. And then I actually like to use the permanent marker for this. Typically, the signature happens here in the bottom right-hand corner. This is a very busy area. And so sometimes I will shift over to the left when I want to go ahead and have a little bit more room. So when this completely sets up and dries, then I'm gonna go ahead and use the permanent marker to sign here, because remember, the rule is permanent marker will just completely get killed if it touches wet paint. So we're definitely gonna give this some time and then come back later and do our signature a little bit later. So, but yes, we are done with our beautiful little mother and child cow. And you're welcome to continue on with more layers and textures if you want to continue having fun with that. It's very relaxing. But I just want to thank y'all again so very much for painting with me today. And again, all the supplies that you need are on our website at tipsyartist.com. And thank you again so very much. Much love to y'all. Toodles.